want to park on something that you mentioned, or go back to something just for a second. You mentioned that people that were struggling had people to teach them theology, but not how to be human. Explain that for a bit, because I think that's very, very true. We have a lot of theology, but not a lot of humanity. Explain that if you would, if you don't mind.
If you have noticed with children when they're born, they don't have a very good idea of how to be human and how to interact with other people, how to use language, how to control their own bodies, how to get along in groups, all those sorts of things. And the brain actually has to learn this sort of from scratch, you might say. It's pretty disorganized going in. And the way the brain does it is by attaching to somebody and then say, I'm going to copy them. And so if they speak English, we learn English. If they speak Spanish, we learn Spanish. If they speak, Hausa, they learn Hausa, and they learn the habits and customs and everything. So basically they're learning how to be human. But the most important thing is learning to understand how a mind that's older, bigger, and wiser than mine thinks, so that I can become like that mind. That's basically what the brain is designed to do. Find a bigger, better, smarter model with more experience that can show me how do I live now. And that's what we model after. Now, suppose your parents have severe psychological disorders. They were raised under, severe trauma. So some of the people we had been in the Holocaust. Some of the people their parents were criminally insane and locked up in the state prisons for the criminally insane. And so they had copied some pretty disturbed experiences and minds of whatever was going on. So when we want to understand, how does God think when he loves me, he's taking care of me? If everybody that I know of has abused me, your brain says, I don't understand this language. I can't track it. And, simply becoming Christian doesn't do that, any better than it does with our other language. For instance, I've yet to meet anyone who, because they became Christian, were suddenly fluent in Hebrew and Greek and could read the original texts. They had to learn that. So to learn the relational language that helps us get along with other people and understand what they're thinking, we also have to have experiences with relatively honest and available minds. And so that's what people were gaining from these church families, was that kind of practice. But at the time, we couldn't tell you what the elements were. And the brain science said specifically, here are the things that your brain must be able to do if you want to understand other minds. And so we've been practicing teaching the people that don't have those skills how to do them, or how to learn from somebody who does have the skills, and then spread that to other people in the interests of helping them understand God and his mind.
Do you find, when you were doing that initially, were those churches that you were interacting with, were those different ethnic churches, or were those just normal churches in that area that had already a better focus on these issues?
No, actually, what we found out was that none of the people who are participating with church were part of a program that the church had initiated. It turns out it was a spontaneously merging from a small group or an encounter of people that decided they wanted to do a little bit more of life together and support each other. So these are spontaneous gatherings that sort of formed out of churches, never out of an intentional program by the church. Not that churches weren't running lots of intentional programs, but they weren't doing the thing we needed. It was people who kind of looked at somebody and go, hey, you need a family, you need somebody to be with on Thanksgiving, you need someplace to go camping on the weekend, come along with us. And they were just basically sharing life together with other people, and from a lot of different churches, but and so it was diverse, but not by intention.